The Behind the Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, KingdomStrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from KingdomStrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact KingdomStrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's KingdomStrollers.com.
A new coffee for Expedition Roasters, Curiouser and Curiouser. This tag says drink me for a Wonderland coffee crumb cake experience. Oh my, I feel so exhilarated. And look at all of these other handcrafted themed coffees and teas they have. It's like falling down a rabbit hole into the most wonderful coffee and tea party. Now you better hurry, you don't want to be late. So head over to Expeditionroasters.com to brew a little magic at your home. Behind the Ears podcast listeners, be sure to use code EARS20 for 20% off your next purchase with us. Brew your happy place.
Coming to you live from our studios on the East Coast and in the Midwest, it's the Behind the Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently. And welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Ears podcast. I'm your host, running solo tonight, Mr. Chris. How's everybody doing tonight? I gotta tell you something. Well, Uncle Danny's not in. He is, I was gonna say a special assignment, but he is still in the process of moving into his new studio. And he told me, yep, it's all that he expected it to be. In other words, it's not like what he's expected. But hey, what can I tell you? He's not here. He wishes he could be. He will be back as soon as he gets everything set up. And if you're not familiar with how much stuff we end up having to set up and take down and set up and take down and stuff like that, anytime we move anything, yeah, you need to feel our pain. I'll tell you that right now, because last time I moved stuff, I couldn't. Some of you remember, I couldn't get things working. It was really pretty pathetic. But I want to say hello to some people. I'll say hey to Bailey and Margie Brunette and others who are joining us throughout the evening. It is just going to be a really, really cool time with you guys tonight. So I am going to do something different, but I want everybody to not necessarily, click away or press stop because of this particular topic. I know I've been talking about Star Wars Celebration and my excitement about going for a number of weeks now. Some of you have watched my personal vlogs on the idea, because I was really trying to document a little bit about what was going on in my mind. And I'm back. I'm back from this absolutely epic event. I want to tell you guys about it, but I want to tell you guys about my experiences, not just from a Star Wars perspective, but also from a complete newbie that has never been at any kind of conference to begin with. That is the interesting twist to this. Why do I put an interesting twist to this? Because I think a lot of times, a lot of us don't want to do things outside of our comfort zone because we've never tried them. And while I was fortunate enough to be provided this opportunity, the interesting part to this experience is that I think I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what it means to go to these things, what kind of time commitment it takes, what kind of toll it takes on your body. I'll get to that for sure. And also, to be honest with you, how you can make it a real honest to goodness vacation. And it is very much something that I think I could adapt to other conferences. Even D23. Now, before anybody speculates, I'm going to let you guys know right now, I will not be able to go to D23 this year. It's just not in the cards this year. I don't know, unless for some reason somebody's able to make it happen for me. Excuse me. It's just one of those things that right now, financially, I don't have tickets. I don't have funds. We got some other things that are going on, and it was one of those things. So first off, let me go ahead and set a stage for you guys. Okay. First off, as I said, I've never been to a con before. I was completely new to this, and I was excited to know that Star Wars Celebration was coming to basically my backyard. And, I'm a Chicagoan. I've lived here all my life, and I really honestly didn't know what to expect. I stated that a number of times. So the event was this past Thursday through yesterday, Monday. And what was really super cool about this was that, I'm glad I went into it not knowing anything. And so the first day started a little bit later in the afternoon. I happened to know somebody else that lived in my town that was also going to be going at the same time. And that basically meant I didn't necessarily have to go alone, at least not for most days. That, I will tell you right now, helped a bit. Actually, it didn't help a bit. It helped a lot because he's never gone to a con either. And what better way to learn how to do different things that if you're going to be doing a divide and conquer with one of your friends from where you live. So I kind of made a nice little deal with him. I told him I'd pay for parking if he drove. It worked out great. And normally I would never drive downtown Chicago. I really don't like driving downtown Chicago. I admit this, mainly because of the parking. He introduced me to an app called Spot Hero. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you something. We don't usually tout a lot of apps on this program. And they're not a sponsor, so I'm going to go ahead and clear that up right off the bat. But take into consideration, we saved probably 75% on parking costs throughout the entire time just because of this app. It was absolutely phenomenal. And we may have had to have walked anywhere between half miles, maybe 3/4 of a mile away. But that's not too bad. Take into consideration normal parking at McCormick Place was somewhere around $50 a day. And I think the most expensive place that we parked one day was $25. Most days were $15. One day was only $10. Big time, savings on that. So we go in to McCormick Place this first day, and it's a Thursday, and it's kind of a pre-game type of day. There were no real big panels. They had different things going on, but someone described it to me as, this is the day that everybody goes shopping. I'm like, okay. So we got there probably about an hour to an hour and a half before everything, they let everybody in. And the funny part about it was we got instantly put into this long, gigantic queue. Folks, let me tell you something. This queue made the queue at Flight of Passage look like nothing. And there were thousands of people in this room through a snaking, winding area. People were sitting down. Some people were even taking naps. Let's just face it. And my friend Mike and I, we kind of just sat down a little bit. We were talking, playing with phones. And we got into conversations with people sitting around us. I mean, people from around the country around us, type of thing. And I'll be honest with you, the very first experience of this, we talked like we knew each other from the very beginning. And that in itself, I'll tell you, cracked the ice. That cracked the ice in such a way where it made me very comfortable around the people I was around. It was really neat. And at the same time, I went live to kind of tell a little bit of what was going on. And some people go, "Hey, you have a podcast?" And I said, "Yeah." So I was passing out buttons. I was passing out business cards, and we just got into a conversation. Here's the thing. And I didn't realize this, and I'm glad I did this. Or I should say I didn't realize the extent. Everybody loves swag. It didn't matter what it was. Everybody loved getting buttons. And there were people that had lanyards that just had buttons all over, lined up and down. And I found out they do a lot of it for trading. And I kind of had an idea of that. But the fact is that it didn't matter what kind of button it was. You still passed out buttons. People still took them. So I'm just like going to people around. "Hey, do you want a button? Hey, here's a button. Hey, you want a button? You want a button? Want a button? Hey, you look like you need a button. Boom, button. And it was awesome. And I'll tell you right now, I have 5 buttons left. And I think the only reason why I have 5 buttons left is just because towards the very end, and this is not a spoiler, I was really tired. And I was actually kind of tired of, I had my bag and I had stuff that I bought for people, and I just didn't want to get it out of my bag. I'll just be honest with you. So I have 5 buttons left, and I'll tell you what I'm going to be doing with those a little later in the show. So as we gone through the winding gauntlet of Q, we eventually made our way into the main exhibit area. Now, it's been a long time since I've been at McCormick Place. Long time, probably 15 years. And I still don't know if I've ever been in this part of the McCormick Place. And you just look and you're like awestruck at everything that is there. And all the people that are walking around. And mind you, this is probably 20 minutes after it opened, because it took that long for us to get through the queuing and to get to the actual exhibiting area. That tells you how many people were there. But once you got into the exhibit area, it didn't seem like it was that crowded, at least for the time being. And not knowing what to expect, I looked for things that I knew I could find easily on a map in order to help make my way around. I wanted to find the main live stage, which is where they did a lot of live interviews and simulcasts of the different panels, which was really cool. And I wanted to find the Galaxies Edge booth, which would happen to be right next to it. And of course, the reason why I wanted to see that, not only because of, find out more about Galaxies Edge, but my wife was also working there as well, which was really, really cool. And I kind of went ahead, since I was I'll try that again. Since I've never been there before at that particular venue, I wanted just to see what was around. Well, they had a whole section just for autographs and photo opportunities. They had a whole area just to get a tattoo. Can you believe that? No, mind you, I don't have a tattoo. I don't have any ink whatsoever. I don't. However, I did run into a friend of mine on Sunday and Monday, and on Monday, he got a Disney tattoo on his arm to go along with his collection. And you see a lot of people walking around, but then you also start seeing some people in costumes. And they were doing some really awesome cosplay. And I will go ahead and I will post this right off the bat. And this comes from Brian. Did anybody dress up as Spaceballs? I didn't see this, Brian, but I do know via pictures that yes. Oh, I take that back. I saw the one person that dressed up as Barf, John Candy's character from Spaceballs. And I did see the picture of the person that was dressed up as Dark Helmet. So yes, I did see that. I'll get right to the point on that one. And so, it was kind of interesting because I didn't realize there was going to be so much merch at the event itself. It was really pretty impressive. Basically, it's like this. If you wanted to find anything that was licensed Star Wars stuff under the sun, some really good Star Wars related art, learning about Disney, or I say Disney, but Star Wars games, you name it, they had it. And if they didn't have it, they can get it. And if they couldn't get it, you didn't need it. I'll just put it like that. So, what's one of the first things we do? We grab a bag to shop with. Yeah, first, and that in a lanyard for our card, for our ID card. So you walk in and you see the whole booth dedicated to Funko for their pops. You see Otterbox had a place. Oculus had demos of their new game coming and new headset coming out in November, which I didn't get a chance to do because the line was so long. There was exhibits by people that were trying to teach people how to play X-Wing. There were exhibitors that were, actually artists and authors, toy vendors, literally everything you can imagine. You go towards the other side. Lego had a really awesome setup where not only could you buy some of their merch, but they also had a whole setup where kids can play in a nice area, for a little bit to have them decompress and play with Legos. Hey, I wanted to play with Legos because who doesn't like to play with Legos, right? Hasbro had their booth there, which was rather impressive and showing all the new toys that they had brought out. And I'm trying to think. There were other vendors that were selling both Star Wars and non-Star Wars stuff. I mean, I'm only assuming that if you're a fan of any sort of pop culture, you can find pretty much anything. Because it's like even this one place that was selling basically film cells from different Star Wars movies. They also had them for Disney movies as well. And I was so tempted to pick one up. It was one of those cases. I was so tempted to pick it up. I didn't, though. I will tell you that right now. And as I'm walking around, I'm just kind of getting the lay of the land. Probably one of the busiest places was the art gallery. This is where many different artists were selling prints, signing them. A lot of people actually bought some from a pre-sale perspective, which was actually really pretty cool. I didn't actually get in there until Monday because it was very much in demand. And at the same time, as I said, Lego had a really good store set up there. I actually did buy some Lego keychains because they were kind of cool, and I really liked that. At the same time, I just, again, that Thursday I was kind of getting the lay of the land, getting an idea of what was going on. But here's the thing that got me. They had a store there for Celebration merch. Folks, I think some of these people set the bar for standing in line for something. In this case, there were reports of some people waiting between 7 and 8 hours. You heard me right. 7 and 8 hours to go through the line for the Celebration store. I want you to think about that for a bit. They basically took that Thursday and used it as a sacrificial day to buy their merch. As I said, I never made it in there, but I also didn't really try that hard as well. Okay, so think about that. So one of the things that I found myself really enjoying, and really enjoying well, was watching different characters walk the floor. Now, most of these people were just people, guests attending the celebration. And they were dressed into so many different types of Star Wars characters. Everything that from like the 501st that has what I would call film ready, perfect replicas of different types of outfits, mainly like stormtroopers and admirals and this, that, and the other, all the way down to mashups. Those types of costumes that take a little bit more creativity, a little bit more of a person's imagination, and makes it their own. And I was really impressed by a lot of it because I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of the Star Wars culture, but I found out pretty darn quickly that the culture went a lot deeper than I think I ever expected. Mainly because people were also cosplaying characters from Star Wars features that I've never watched. My son has, but I haven't. And you're probably wondering like what I'm referring to. All the animated items, all this, the one-offs and this, that, and the other. People were dressing up as characters from Star Wars Rebels and a bunch of the other animated series that you would find on Disney XD in most cases, or you could also find them on Netflix. And a lot of those costumes, people took a lot of time and effort. This wasn't just stuff that you throw together, although there were some things that were very nicely done that you can tell that were, it was more Star Wars bounding, to go off the like Disney bounding, Star Wars bounding than anything else. And those were cool too. But when you see some of these people and when you see a stormtrooper or stormtroopers walking by and you kind of look at them and they kind of stop and they kind of slowly look at you as well. It's like, wow, it's not just walking around in costume. It's really playing a part. And some of these people did absolutely fabulous jobs with that. It was amazing. But as I said, that is only day one. And Mike and I pretty much took that time to really just get a feel for it. And we really enjoyed our time there, just, seeing what we can buy and stuff like that, making some plans. Day two is when the things really got rolling. Let me explain. So I had won a lottery to be able to go to the episode 9 panel at the Wintrust Arena. And so Mike and I both got there. It was about 8:00 in the morning, and I didn't know what time they were really going to open things up. So I get in line, get scanned in, standing in line. I got a cool stocking cap as a gift for going. And even as we were walking through the line, McDonald's was actually passing out Happy Meals, which I thought was actually pretty hilarious. And go through security, which was fine. And I go and I find a seat in my section. I wanted something of a clear view. I sat on the edge. And I sat there for a little while, and DJ Elliott was there mixing the tunes up, and it was absolutely awesome. And this gentleman here, I had the pleasure of meeting, and I got to tell you something, man. It was absolutely fabulous talking with you for 2.5 hours. And when I say that we sat down as total complete strangers and we left there as friends, I believe that was true. And it was absolutely fabulous hanging out with you, my friend. And I really enjoyed just the conversation. And it was also one of those cases where, I would talk with different people around us as well. In fact, before he came around, I interviewed someone who also had their first celebration experience. Some of you will find that over on the Behind the Ears Podcast Facebook page under the video section. And I will tell you that was the fastest 2.5 hours I ever waited for. It was as simple as that. But I got to tell you, to see some of these people that worked on this movie, to talk about it. And I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that Stephen Colbert was actually kind of like the moderator of the conversation, which was absolutely hilarious. And he did an absolute fabulous job with it too. So it was cool. So I didn't realize I was getting to see Stephen Colbert. And I'm like, yeah, it was cool. That was really, really cool. And so, as the conversation started to go, and it had, oh goodness gracious, See, I didn't write my notes out for tonight. I'm doing this totally unscripted like we usually do. But it was absolutely fabulous to see Daisy Ridley and pretty much the entire main part of the cast. And, dude, Billy D. Williams. I mean, seriously, this guy does not age, in my opinion. I mean, it was just absolutely fabulous. Man, to see everybody there, I got massive pictures, and I will be posting them up over on the Behind Ears Podcast Facebook page. And just to hear them talk about it, and to see some of the different characters, some of the different scenes, and I gotta tell you something. Everybody wanted to know: A, where's the trailer? B, what the name was going to be. I'll get to that in 1 second. One of the things I'll go ahead and I'll tell you, in case you haven't seen part of the panel over at StarWars.com, one thing I found very moving was that they managed to include footage from Carrie Fisher. There was footage that was included mainly for The Last Jedi, but it didn't make it to the final cut. And what J.J. Abrams basically mentioned was they actually moved some of the story around, and that's my interpretation of it, of what he said, in order to include Carrie's original footage, not using CGI or anything like that, in order to basically, memorialize her work. And I found that to be touching. And I'll be super honest. Being that Carrie Fisher was such a pivotal role throughout the saga, it was very touching. And I'll tell you more about that in a second. The interesting part to it is that you would think in the day of CGI, and CGI are in movies all over the place. Even the simplest film is, filled with CGI. What was really kind of nice is to hear JJ and others mention, yes, obviously there's still a lot of CGI in this movie, but there's a lot of old school filmmaking still done for episode 9. And as a person that really loves, movies, and for a person that sees other people, kind of rip on CGI remakes, especially some that Disney is actually doing, coming up. There's been some flack that Disney's been getting about, heavy CGI laden films. It's really awesome to actually know that, yes, there's obviously CGI, there's obviously special effects, but there's old school filmmaking happening here. And that is just so cool. And so one of the things that happened was they played the trailer. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about this. To see something in a theater of several thousand people, and I say theater, it's an auditorium of several thousand people. To see it for the first time, we were all cheering through every major part of that trailer. When Carrie Fisher was, a very small shot with her showed on the screen, I think everybody felt really emotional. I will admit, myself included. And when the end title finally popped up, I was actually concerned that roof was going to just explode off the top of that building. The energy that was had in that building, I've never experienced it before. I've been to some pretty awesome concerts in my time. This was one of those things I just honestly could not believe the energy that was had. People were just blowing up over it. And then, after it was done, Ian McDonald came out and he plays Senator Palpatine. And he basically said in his character's voice, "Play it again." And everybody just blew up like nobody's business. And yes, they played it again, and it got such a huge just roar again, even more so. And it was done when it was done, everything was done. The lights came up. I stood there and I'm just like, I saw history in essence being made. And it was the first time I've ever experienced something like that, to be honest. As simple was just watching a trailer. But I was watching a trailer with all these people where the subject matter was extraordinarily important to all of us as moviegoers, to all of us as Star Wars fans. Never have I experienced something like that. So afterwards, people kind of started making their way out. Now, I've been to a concert or two before, as I've said in the past. I know what happens at the end of a concert and trying to get out. But here's the thing. It wasn't that I was worried about trying to get out. I was worried about getting back in. And what I mean by that is everybody had to go through security again to get into the McCormick place after they were done. Yeah, think about that for a second. But beforehand, I'll go ahead and mention what Justin mentions here. Have you seen the video of the people watching the trailer? It was fun to watch. Yep. I've seen the video, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it didn't do it justice. It really honestly didn't do it justice. So, and also just going to take a quick moment. I want to say hi to Laura. Hey, thanks for joining us, Laura. Really appreciate it. Rich, what's going on from just the other side of the state is one of those cool. And you know what? People were emotionally moved by the addition of Carrie Fisher, Trisha. Yeah, I totally and completely agree. And Laura, I will tell you this, that I took over probably 12 or 1300 pictures. So I do have to get them worked out. Yeah, everyone turned to one another and said, "Did this really happen?" Yeah, I will admit that. It was one of those things. And, John also mentioned, I wish they used microphones to better hear the crowds cheering during the stream. The roar was very low. I don't think it would have done it justice, to be honest with you. I really honestly don't. So it was just really one of those absolute crazy things. So after that, I waited for the lines to actually go down at security. And I got a text message from my wife. And she's like, "Hey, I'm going to lunch. Can you meet up with me?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I met with her. And the previous day, on Thursday, I actually bought a mug, a refillable mug, I might add. Someone's taking the cue from Disney here, I might add. And it was about the same. It was the same size and style mug that you would get at any resort, refillable mug type of thing. Except it was $22, which sounds like a lot. But a regular soda in a plastic cup was $4. So it's one of those cases where I decided to go ahead and get it. And my wife and I would meet every day for lunch and her breaks at the soda machine, fill it up, and she would drink. Here's one thing I will go ahead and tell you now, that I made some mistakes. One of the mistakes, I didn't eat hardly anything while I was there. Why is that a mistake? Because I hardly ate anything in the morning, and I really didn't eat anything until I got home. It made for a real hungry Mr. Chris when he came home. I kind of pushed my body really, really hard. I was walking 6-7 miles a day. Now, mind you, some of that does, get attributed to walking to parking spots and so on and so forth. But still, it was pretty impressive. So after that, I ran into a friend of mine. Now, remember how I was telling you about cosplay? Okay. Good friend of mine that I have had the pleasure to work with in my company. He has a wonderful no, wait, let's see. No, this one was a Kylo Ren, but it was done as a Kylo Ren in Shakespearean form. And it was epic. And I'm going to show you pictures of this, but it was just phenomenal. The detail that went into this outfit he was wearing was second to none. It was gorgeous to look at, I'll be really honest. But what actually kind of set it off is that he also had kind of a skull and helmet of Vader that was kind of melted that he would carry around. But he also had this fan, like an Asian fan, that he would flip open and it would make this really loud popping sound. And, you know, type of thing. And it just, everybody thought that was awesome, most awesome thing. So he and I walked around. I got some really good shots of him, but what I love doing is I watched his interactions with people, or maybe I should say people's interactions with him, because a lot of people wanted their picture taken with him. And I thought that was really awesome. Again, something I've never experienced before. We take it for granted. You know, we see a character at Disney and generally speaking, you know, characters that walk around the street, a lot of times you don't even get a chance. They won't necessarily stop for you to get a quick pic or anything like that. It was very commonplace around the celebration floor. In fact, there were some times that, you know, it would take you half an hour to walk halfway around the celebration floor just because everybody wanted a picture. And I will say that, yes, Justin, my wife absolutely loved this Kylo Ren outfit. In fact, what was cool is that, mind you, on Thursday, I was going to share this a little bit later, but I'll share it now. On Thursday, I did go to the Galaxies Edge booth, which I thought was phenomenal. And they had a number of cast members there. I knew half of them, to be honest with you. A lot of them were Kathy's fellow castmates, and and the whole group was just a bunch of wonderful people. And there was quite a line to get in. So the interesting part to it is I got to see it on Thursday when there wasn't a lot going on. Got my picture taken in what is going to be one of the ride vehicles. They had 3 photo opportunities. They got to see merch, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And they also had these things called fan-fessionals. Now, here's the cool part. You're able to go in and you're able to pretty much, you know, express like one of your best or favorite Disney moments or Star Wars moments, which was really kind of neat. And they recorded it, and I'll tell you more why in a moment. And so it was really kind of a neat and interesting experience. It lasted a couple minutes to do that sort of thing. I will admit I accidentally screwed up. I walked into one of them not knowing where I was supposed to go. So I thought, I'll go ahead and do it. I didn't know there was a line. Oops, I cut the line by accident. I'll admit, I'm sorry. I was a little confused where I was supposed to go. Sorry, everybody. Anyway. So I did that, and I did the photo shoots, and then I took pictures of the merch. Let me tell you a little bit about the merch really quick. They had different merch every day, and I did take pictures of the merch, and I will tell you that I have never seen Disney merch be so detailed and specific to a land ever. What I mean by that is that I would say less focus on branding. Oh, how do I put that? More focus on quality than, like, say, outright branding. Some of the things that they said was that, like, example, they had some outfits, some clothing that were on some mannequins and so on. And so I asked the cast member there, excuse me, I asked the cast member, is that are these going to be made available as pretty much ready to wear cosplay outfits? And she confirmed that with me. And I just looked at the quality of the products that they had there. And yes, it ranged from relatively inexpensive souvenir type items all the way through stuff that you would like to have on your shelf as collectibles. and pretty much everything in between. And that, I will say, impressed me, because I know the Disney merch is not necessarily inexpensive. But I've also always said that things like clothing and collectible type items are usually of very high quality. I think this actually raised the bar just from what I saw. Now, that being said, I will say that a lot of it was very specific and unique to Galaxy's Edge. You're not necessarily going to see, or at least not in the merch examples that we had, you're not going to see like a lot of Mickey Mouse stuff. It's going to be very specific to the Star Wars brand. At least that's what I saw. There could still be, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying what I saw was very specific to Star Wars characters that are part of the movie and items that are very much themed to Galaxy's Edge. It's going to be very impressive to see what it comes out to be. I think I'm going to be very broke, if you ask me. And if you don't ask me, I'm going to go tell you right now, I'm going to be broke. It's as simple as that. So anyway, going back to Friday. Some of the things that I did on Friday, I included watching some X-Wing competitions happening. And X-Wing is a really cool table game. And I think what was cool about that is my friend Mike looked at that and said, you know what, that would be something that I think my son and I could possibly get into. And I believe that they were going to look at that later. He didn't have his son with him, except on Monday he surprised his son by taking him out of school. And it's one of those, it's really kind of cool. He surprised his son with a pass on Monday. And so after a long day, we decided that we would make our way out and head back home. So that was that day. Now, Saturday, this is where I think most people here would really actually be interested. Saturday morning, I had the ability to go to the panel for Galaxy's Edge. This is what they were going to do in sense of releasing information about Galaxy's Edge. Now, it was one of those cases where I knew that friend and fellow podcaster Stan Solo from the Grand Circle Tour podcast was going to be there. Now, it's really hard. I will tell you right now, it was really hard to find people that you knew. But Stan and I were in contact throughout the celebration. And I finally said, where are you at? And so he goes, I'm on the floor. I said, okay. So I start going down towards the floor, and I end up meeting him up, and he's like, hey, I've got an extra seat here if you want to join us. So I'm like, why not? So I sat next to Stan, and we were kind of like pretty much about as much in the center as you can get. And I found out that we were actually sitting right behind a whole bunch of Disney cast members. And it was really kind of cool. Now, this is the first time Stan and I actually met in person. And I will tell you this. I had a wonderful time meeting him. I had a wonderful time hanging out with him and some of the people that he knew from there as well. And, you know, by the time, again, for the second time, by the time I left, it almost felt like Stan and I have known each other for years, you know, type of thing. It was just the spirit of what was going on. And it was great. And isn't that what these things are all about? Is meeting up with new friends, meeting up with old friends, and just having a great time. And so I just thought that was cool. And Stan, if you're listening, really, my friend, it was absolutely fabulous hanging out with you. So he and I watched a lot of Galaxy's Edge, and some of the cool things that came out of it is that the theming seems like it is going to be amazing. They're, you know, example, the pictures that probably some of you have seen don't do it justice. The details are going to be deep, 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 deep. You're going to feel like you are on the set, so to speak. It's going to almost, I'll say figuratively / literally, transports you out to places that you've never been before. The cast that will be, working there, they're going to be immersive as well, from what I gather. I mean by that is they're going to look like characters, every last one of them. And it's pretty awesome to see that. The sights and sounds and smells are going to be just more than you can possibly imagine. And it really honestly seems like the rides that they're going to have there, it's going to be more than I think that we've ever experienced. I mean, if people think Flight of Passage is immersive, Flight of, basically, all these other attractions are going to be like, hey, hold my drink and watch this. And I really got that feeling. Let me tell you how immersive it's going to be. And some of you have already seen this. In fact, I know there's a video posted over at the WDW community page. But even Coca-Cola has basically created brand integration with Galaxies Edge so much to the point where their soda products look like thermal detonators from the movie. Which, quite appropriate if you think about it. I mean, after all, nice icy cold Coke or Diet Coke or Sprite for that matter. Not a sponsor. They, in essence, detonate thirst, heat, that sort of thing. And what was kind of cool is that, it has the labels actually printed in Arabic. And we all got a Coca-Cola shirt that was written in Arabic. It was really kind of neat. And unfortunately, it only came in one size. And it did not come in a Mr. Chris friendly size, so my son got my shirt. Such is life. Either that or I have to lose about 150 pounds, and that ain't going to happen anytime soon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you that right now. The amount of integration into this is just even so deep that there's going to be codes, like QR type codes around, that's going to actually help you see more of it through like something of an interactive component as well. Now, some people have said, hey, they've done stuff like that, like, the Agent P World Showcase Challenge, or even before that, Kim Possible All Around World Showcase. This is going to take it even more so. And I think it's going to be something that is going to actually change a little bit depending on how you do it, because it's going to be interactive with everybody doing it. I just think it's so awesome. The interesting part to this whole thing is that I know some people who may not necessarily be Star Wars fans are wondering, what's in it for me? Because, why would you want to partake in something like that, especially with long waits at the beginning, if you're not necessarily interested in the subject matter? I get it. I'll tell you that right now. I think that you want to try this out. And I think you want to go into this with an open mind, even if you've never seen the things before. It may very well inspire you to watch the movies and to find out more of the different types of storylines. I think that it's one of those cases where, yes, it's going to be busy as all get out for Lord knows how long after it first opens up. But I think it's going to be immersion to the level that no one has ever seen before. I'm going to be sharing some pictures, and I think, you will see what I mean by the types of immersion. And I will also tell you this: John Williams, who basically did the score for the movies, he actually wrote the score for the background music and everything else around Galaxy's Edge. Ladies and gentlemen, this pleases Mr. Chris. I just think it's going to be an amazing experience. At the same time, if you remember Rex from Star Tours, he's the droid that kind of tends to screw things up. He makes an appearance as well. And the cool part is that he's a DJ. Oh, yeah. And let me tell you something. You know, you remember the Cantina song from Star Wars? Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something. They've got that playing, but then Rex also takes it to another level. That's right. Rex tries to make his own music, and boy, let me tell you something. If I thought I can get away with playing it, I would play the sample that they provided. And I think it's mainly going to be played in the cantina, and I think it's just going to add to the authenticity of that sort of thing. I just think it's cool. And I'll share what Trisha is saying here. She's saying, just hearing about everything rekindled my love for Star Wars, getting ready to binge watch them all. You're not the only one, Trisha. I totally agree with that. And, you know, it's one of those cases where I really truly believe that this is going to rekindle Star Wars and its brand for way much more than the foreseeable future. Also, I want to throw up here what John mentions. He's saying John Williams is much of a character of the franchise as the characters themselves. Absolutely. And it was actually said at one time that music and sound is like the unseen character in these movies. And that is very much the case. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, I've always said in my movie reviews, etc., how well a soundtrack fits or how well it doesn't fit. And it was one of those things where it's kind of like, we all love background music from the parks. This is one of those parts of background music that I really hope they put on CD. Brian asks, was that song in the panel that's shared in the group in its entirety? Yes. Both those pieces. So you can probably go out and take a listen over at the WDW community page, or you could also go to StarWars.com. They should have the panels up online for everybody to enjoy. So let me tell you this. Someone asked, what did I think of the Galaxies Edge panel? I thought the Galaxies Edge panel was great. And the main people that were in the panel, first off, I forgot to mention this. It was led by Josh Gad. That's right, Olaf. And he did a great job. I'll tell you right now. Josh Gad is a wonderful person, a fabulous character, and did a great job of, talking to those. It was mainly Imagineers that worked on the show, worked on Galaxy's Edge. Unfortunately, I got to meet a couple of them on Saturday, and they actually signed my badge, which was really kind of slick. Got to talk to them for a little bit. So some people would say, did you learn anything new? And I would probably say 75% of what was talked about, I think we generally knew. We've seen pictures. We've kind of speculated. We kind of had some of our own Imagineering in ourselves, so to speak. And I will think that the last 25% in sense of how deep that integration goes, that part, there were, as I said, between the interactivity, the integration of branding, and how authentic or new experiences that will be had for us, really, I think, took it to another level. It made me really say, yes, I want to go to Galaxy's Edge. And yes, believe it or not, there were people at the Galaxy's Edge booth that Disney had there that were actually booking trips. Yes, there are rooms available. So, now granted, are there any rooms available after this weekend? I don't know. But they were booking trips. It was really pretty epic. And as Justin mentioned, you'll feel that you left Earth and stepped into a world that you thought could only exist in the movies. That's how I felt. That panel was really, really doing it. Now, one thing I will tell you, when I talked to the Imagineers, they said something that was very apparent. And that was, they did this with their love of Star Wars in mind. And they did this because they want us, the guest, to be completely wowed and to experience something they've never experienced before. Yes, completely believe that it's going to be true. I have a feeling that anybody, even if you don't like Star Wars, you're going to love this. So it is going to be pretty darn epic. And yes, it was a pretty smart move on Coke's part because, for the brand integration, because think about it. You're deeply integrated into this world that you've never seen before. And you're holding onto a standard Coke bottle. That just doesn't seem like Disney now, does it? So yeah, that seems like it was really cool. All right. So left the Wintrust Arena for went back into the McCormick Place. I ran into my friend once again who did the previously mentioned Kylo Ren mashup, and he and his wife were mashups of a Mandalorian. Now, one was a Mandathorian, and one was a Mandalokian. Think about that for a minute. That's right, Mandalorians mixed up with Loki and Thor. Let me tell you something. Their costumes were phenomenal. And what was cool, and this is my wording of it. First off, I got to take a lot of really awesome pictures of them, and I will be posting it, and it was just really pretty slick. I actually got to go through Galaxies Edge a third time with them. It was kind of funny because we're sitting in the ride vehicle, and they're both like, next to me type of thing. I'm like, doing a little scare face, which obviously people on the podcast can't see me do. I guess I'll just have to imagine it. It was really pretty epic, and I took different pictures of them at the different photo opportunities. But then this is where I really saw the fandom come into play, because they were very unique. You didn't see anybody like them. People wanted their picture, and you couldn't walk 10 feet without it. So I kind of acted a little bit as their handler, so to speak, because it was really hard for them to see through some of their visors. So I would kind of they could see me, but not necessarily around them. So I would kind of make sure that I would make a path for them. I don't know if it helped them or not. I'd like to think it did. It was kind of cool. And then I would stop with them and, take some pictures, especially if they did different poses or pose with other characters. In fact, we ran into a Captain America Mandalorian mashup as well. And let me tell you something, that was absolutely hilarious to have 3 Avenger-themed Mandalorian mashups there at the same time. That was really pretty slick. It was really, really good. So I did that for a few hours, and they eventually said, Chris, you don't have to do this with us. I said, listen, guys, I'm seeing something from a very unique angle. I'm seeing people, how they interact with the characters. Everything from grown adults, teenagers, little kids in costume. And I'll tell you this right now. I really honestly can't believe what I saw and how well, how people acted. It was just wonderful. People were polite, taking pictures, and just enjoying the theme of it. It was like none other. It was something I didn't get to see, and I got to see it from somewhat of a unique angle. So I did that. And also at the same time, I watched several different interviews from the celebration stage, because they had people come out and actually do live interviews on stage there, which was actually really neat. And it was a lot of people that were on the different panels already earlier that day. So I got to watch an interview with Alan Tudyk, which was really, he's such a trip. I mean, I've seen him in tons of movies. He is such a trip. I really enjoyed him. Alex Boyega was there, and he seems like such an awesome guy. Daisy Ridley, absolutely fabulous young lady. And it was just really cool to see, people really get into it. Now the thing of it is that it seemed like it took a lot of time, and it did. But here's the key part. It wasn't over on Saturday night. They turned the lights off, or partially turned the lights off, telling everybody to get out. So my friend Mike and I, we decided that we were going to go downtown, because they were going to have a lightsaber battle. That's right. A lightsaber battle at the Bean, downtown Chicago. A lot of you may have already seen this video over at the on the Behind the Ears podcast page, and I know it was shared over to the WDW community page. And picture about somewhere between 600 and 700 people at the Bean at Millennium Park, downtown Chicago, and about 400 of them, if not more, yielding lightsabers at 9 o'clock at night. My friends, I have seen a lot of really interesting things. That is something I don't know if I'll ever experience again in that magnitude. And the cool part is that it wasn't just a bunch of people holding lightsabers. They were actually having battles under the Bean. And I'm talking full contact lightsaber to lightsaber fights. Obviously, no one getting hurt or anything like that. But it was like, oh my gosh. And so Mike and I were there for, a half an hour or so, because they did a light side, dark side battle and, a clash type of thing. And there were some times that were just very, very touching and moving because everybody was having a great time. But they also paid tribute to Carrie Fisher. And also, they were also chanting Ren a lot, referring to Daisy Ridley's character. And the thing of it is that the energy was just off the charts. It was a lot of fun. I wish I had a lightsaber. That would have been great. I got some really cool shots of that, and I hope to post that up as well. So we'll have to see how that goes. Sunday, excuse me for 1 second. Sunday started off my morning by taking the train in. That's right, I took the train in this time, mainly because of some scheduling issues. I was only going to spend a little bit of time there, but I wanted to go to the Mandalorian panel. And the cool part about this is it's going to be a brand new series on Disney Plus, and it's going to be available only on Disney Plus. And with Jon Favreau basically, directing it, I got to tell you something. Even though I was not in the Wintrust Arena and I sat in the overflow area, the energy was really buzzing. Everybody was really interested in hearing what they had to say about it. And again, this is the cool part about this. John and company did not necessarily want to use a lot of CGI. They actually used traditional model making techniques to do a lot of the special effects. Think about that. It's 2019 and they're still making models. That's amazing. And we actually got to see a trailer for it, which, again, out of this world. I don't know if it's out available for general release yet. But the cool part is that we saw how they made a particular part of it. And the finished product could very well pass for CGI, but it's traditional model making. And that kind of old school thought is something that I think only Lucasfilm and ILM can really bring to life. And they're doing this for a series, basically, if you think about it, a TV series. Not necessarily a movie. They're using movie-making techniques for a series. That is impressive. That is so impressive. And I got to tell you, I think if Disney Plus was only fueled by those that would want to watch Mandalorian, I think it would be self-sustaining. But that was also the first time that we're hearing that November 12th is the date that is going to be the launch date for Disney Plus. And I can't wait for it. We're going to talk more about that on a different show. Unfortunately, on Sunday I had to leave early. So I went and I ended up taking the train home, but here was the funny part. On Sunday, it got cold. It was snowing, and by the time I got back to my car, there was 4 or 5 inches of wet, heavy, dense snow on my car. The funny part is that everybody said, you know what, Disney really outdid themselves. And I said, why? Well, because they managed to bring the world of Hoth, the ice planet, to Chicago Celebration. It was pretty epic. So Monday, now this is the last day, and I am coming to a close. I'm going to extend my time here. I went to in the morning panel, again, back at the Wintrust Arena, the 20th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, Episode 1. And they brought out, the technical producers and so on, and they brought out Gosh, man, dear Chris, to your future self, please make sure you take better notes before you actually go on the air. And, they brought on, a lot of the cast, and, I'll admit Phantom Menace is not my favorite movie out of the series, but it was very purposeful in how they did it. And a lot of times you also thought that they did a lot of CGI in that. Yeah, there was some CGI, but you know what? They still did models with that. Again, this was 1999. They still used models, which I was pretty impressed with. Now that particular one was actually being curated by Warwick Davis, which was really cool. And he was a really good interviewer, I might add. And to have, again, I'm really sorry. To have the opportunity to see them talk about it was really pretty good. But I will tell you this, unfortunately, it was also, in my opinion, it was a good panel, but I think all the others were better. Just saying. I enjoyed my time there, but still. Afterwards, again, waited for the crowd to go down a little bit, but I met my wife for her lunch break. And Monday's mood was very much a little bit more somber. Why? Because there are fewer people in costume. Vendors were wanting to sell the last bit of things. I had people call me up, say, "Hey, Chris, could you pick me up something and ship it to me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, not a problem." And ended up having a big bag of stuff by the time it was all said and done. I got to meet a friend of mine here from the region, and he was the one that got a tattoo. But he and I haven't seen each other in a couple of years, actually several years, and we got to meet at Celebration. And as everything started to come to a close, I thought to myself, what do I have to learn? The fact of the matter is that I know that my level of fandom was nowhere near the level of most others there. I know. I knew it. But I felt accepted. I felt like I was just one of everybody else. I felt like I could have done anything character-wise, and it would have been just fine. We were all there for one reason, to celebrate the fandom that is Star Wars. And being that Star Wars is a Disney brand, I think, every once in a while we'll still bring up these things on this show. Because we do cover everything here, from, trip planning to parks to resorts, food, of course, Star Wars, Marvel, TV, movies, books, music, you name it. It's what we do here. And I really feel like I want to go back and I want to learn more about the Star Wars, I guess you could call it, genre of movies. And I think it'll also, I'll tell you right now, it'll bring my son and I closer. Because my son knows all the characters of all these different people. It's absolutely amazing. But I will tell you this. It was one of those things where Star Wars was was probably the first movie I remember to go see with my dad. And that meant a lot to me. Once I really thought about it, that was the first movie, 1977, that I remember actually seeing with my dad. I was 5 years old. And in some ways, that was the benchmark. Pretty big benchmark to have, if you ask me. And I really felt, while my body was beat up from walking miles and miles and miles, I felt sad that it was over. But I felt extraordinarily satisfied. And I will tell you this. I know that I can't express everything I feel in an hour-long show. And I know that I'll probably be blogging it in a couple different parts with a whole bunch of pics over on the Behind Ears podcast website at Behindtheearspodcast.net. So I'll be doing that over as I write them. I'll let people know through the Facebook page. And so towards the very end, they finally had a closing ceremony, and they announced where it was going to be next year. And that's right. It's going to be in Anaheim, back to Anaheim in 2020. That's right. They're not waiting 2 years. They're only going to wait 1 year. So that kind of brings up this question. Brian brings it up at just the right moment. So now that it's over, would I travel? Would I travel for another one? Great question. Great question. The answer is maybe. Let me tell you why. Obviously, money has to be there. Okay, I can't just arbitrarily say, yes, I'm going to do this. 2, Anaheim is going to cost me a lot of money to get there. Okay, let's just face it. It's not cheap to travel, it's 2/3 around the country. 3, I want to take my son. My son has to agree to miss a little bit of school, but I want to take my son. So obviously there's a whole bunch of other logistics with that as well. My heart is in it that I want to go back. In the meantime, I want to learn more of this world of Star Wars. I want to enjoy it. I can't wait till D+ comes out. I just really honestly believe that I have only scratched the surface. And of course, some people like John. He's going to make that 10-minute drive to Anaheim. I am totally, completely jealous, John. So here's the thing. If I could give you guys some tips to do anything, any kind of a tip about going to your first convention of sorts, it's like going on vacation at one of the Disney parks. You're going to walk a lot. You're going to spend money. You're going to stand in lines. And you got to have something of a plan. You won't see everything the first time. I missed so many things that I wanted to go see because I was doing something else that was interesting too. And I don't have any regrets on that. That's just the way it was. Just like when you go on a Disney vacation, you're not going to fit it all in. It's as simple as that. But I had a blast, and I wasn't worried about missing something because I had an awesome time. And it really meant a lot to me to be able to be there. And as I said, I think right now I'm still processing a lot of it. And I think I'm going to be able to word a lot of this better as I write it out and I place pictures along with the words. Because sometimes to read about it, to see some pictures in context, will help everybody really get a better picture and a better understanding of it. And I hope that whether or not, it doesn't matter if you're part of our live show viewing audience, whether part of your podcast audience, that you will stop over at the Behindtheearspodcast.net page once I get them out there so you can see what else I have to say about this. I will tell you that I would love to do it again. In fact, I would love to do another con of some sorts. And I'll just have to see how that goes. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to go end here. And I hope that this has been a little bit of a taste. I'm still probably not doing this justice. I know I'm not doing it justice. And it's probably because, as I said, I'm still kind of processing this. I've got video. I've got pictures. I've got notes. And seriously, I just felt like I wanted to talk about it. And mainly because I know that, it would be difficult for me to talk about this almost any other time. I'm taking the advantage of Danny not being here in a way because, I'm still trying to get my show partner here. Love you, Danny. Love you like a brother. To get Danny to hopefully fall in love with the Star Wars saga. So I got to talk to his girlfriend because I think that'll be the only way I get to do this. But I'll probably have more about this very soon. because I want to document each day and the things that I felt with video and pictures. And I think you'll even get a better idea. And you'll find those videos and pictures and even some narration and probably some special YouTube-only videos. So we'll have to take a look for that. Yes, I do believe that we need an intervention for Danny. We'll have to figure out how to do that. Annoy him to all end so that he'll actually do this. So let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to press this button, but hang with me. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this another solo episode of the Behind the Ears Podcast. Listen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Thank you for being a part of the Behind the Ears Podcast family. Really, it does mean a lot. And I'll be honest with you, I got to meet a whole bunch of awesome people at the Star Wars celebration. I passed out a ton of buttons to talk about our show. I know there's a lot of people that are watching tonight that are first-time watchers. Thank you so much. And if you're listening to the podcast for the first time, thank you as well. We really do appreciate it. And by all means, like I said, you have any questions, comments, show ideas, drop me a line, behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. We do read them all. We may not necessarily respond to all of them. And I'll be honest with you, we also take all of your suggestions and see what we can do to help make them a reality. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and let you go for right now. So I'll tell you what, until we meet again, I hope you have an absolutely magical day. Take care.